Hello. Thank you. At the outset, I'd like to thank CSR Box for hosting us in this very flagship initiative. And the subject that we're discussing today, of course, around drones is quite interesting on many levels. I think the earlier discussion actually came up with a point around, there being a glass ceiling in the social sector, and that, there is a lot to be done in terms of streamlining before, actually funds flow in. Drones per se is that technology which can pretty much literally and figuratively shatter a lot of those ceilings and actually deliver the goods, which is what one of the initiatives that we've worked on called Medicine from the Sky has done. We will be diving a little deeper into that as we progress today. So without much ado, I'd like to start with my, with Kundan, who's here amongst us, who leads Red Wing Labs. So, Kundan, if I can ask you on, about your initiatives around drones, especially around healthcare deliveries, if you can give us an example, say Arunachal Pradesh, how did it start? What did you do? How did the funds flow in? Where does it stand? What are the next steps? If you can give us a landscape.
Thank you, Vignesh, and thanks to all of you for making time for this panel. Very exciting to be here. So quickly on the Arunachal project that you just mentioned, Vignesh. So the Arunachal Pradesh Drone Delivery Network is India's first healthcare drone delivery network. I would say technically even South Asia's first drone delivery network. And because it was India's first such full-scale district project, it was a multi-stakeholder collaboration because no single entity organization could pull something off like that. So there were multiple stakeholders who facilitated and enabled that project. So World Economic Forum was the pivotal anchor partner that brought the state government and a lot of the other partners together to make that program happen. USAID, as part of the Samrit program, along with IPE Global, became one of the anchor funding partners along with the government of Arunachal Pradesh, and there were other support clinical partners like Apollo Hospitals and a lot of the other partners who helped us run that program. So essentially, to put it in a quick nutshell, the drones connected the main district headquarters hospital to the CHCs and PHCs of that district, by which medicines and vaccines were sent and diagnostic samples were brought back for testing, making it very effective for the health system to offer healthcare at the periphery without people having to travel to the district hospital. So that is what happened in a nutshell regarding the Arunachal program.
So I'll just follow up on that a little bit, just dig a little deeper. So initially when we started off, of course, it was more of a pilot initiative, as you know. I mean, funds were limited, but the value that the project was delivering was great. How was your journey towards keeping, the sentiment of your investors alive and also, getting funds to actually run this initiative overall?
So because it was a first of its kind project, we had to rely on blended and philanthropic funding to get the project off the ground, which is where USAID, as part of the Samrit program, had come in for support. And after the impact was proven, right, it took us almost 1.5 to 2 years to run the pilot program, prove the impact, and then when the government saw that the results were real, right, what we had hypothesized in terms of reducing out-of-pocket expenditure, increasing access, improving the quality of diagnostics, once those had materialized, the government itself stepped in to make the program sustainable, right? So from one district back in 2022, the program has now expanded to 3 districts. In fact, the very novel thing that happened is, for the first time in the country, the medical college in the capital city of Arunachal Pradesh got connected to the district headquarters hospital. So wherein samples now can flow not just from PHCs to the district hospital, but from PHCs to the state medical college, crisscrossing almost 2 districts in between. So that is where the program is today. And so our learning is that if through pilot projects we can prove out impact, eventually a government will be more than willing to take it up and make it sustainable, right? That's a question most of us ask with any new tech, how sustainable it is. It looks beautiful, but is it sustainable? The Arunachal Medicines from the Sky program is a testament to how sustainable a program can be if executed well and if all partners come together.
Great, thanks. I'll move to you, Himanshu, on that. So you were also, you played a very active role in this program. And as you know, it's not a one-person solution. There was government, there was a private sector, there was, the social impact funding that came through that was required to make this. So just if I had to ask you, so basically timing is key here. So at what point, first of all, if you had to put a price tag to an initiative like this, what would it be? How should how should CSR funding actually be approached when it comes to an initiative like this?
Thanks, Vignesh and Kundan, for setting the scene for this discussion. So, just to kind of lay the ground, I lead the Samrit Healthcare Blended Finance Facility, which is supported by USAID. And our mandate over the last 4 years has been to support early stage ventures in the healthcare space uh, across the ecosystem. So, from medtech devices to drone supply chain solutions like Red Wings to AI machine learning based solutions, primary healthcare chains, etc., and providing them support both in terms of affordable capital so that they can scale up their operations, but also in terms of helping them in accessing markets better and providing them the entire range of technical advisory services and business support services. So that's the kind of play that we work on, and we have seen that with instruments like blended finance. We were hearing about it in the last session as well. There is a huge opportunity that you can unlock more commercial capital using limited amount of philanthropic capital that is there through CSR and other avenues. Now, when the Red Wings program came to us for funding, and there was this idea that how drones can be used for last mile delivery of healthcare supplies as well as getting samples back uh, in geographies like Arunachal or in Odisha, the first question that we also had was that is it something which is required and is it going to be sustainable? And that was the biggest question that we started delving into. And what we realized was that this market for drones in the country is very, very new and it requires a lot of validation. So our initial support to Red Wings went in for validating the entire model. So the first year and a half when the pilot happened along with the government of Arunachal, it was more to validate the solution, how a hub and spoke model would work in reality, because till then nobody else has done that at that scale. Most of the things were few flight pilots that were done by majority of the players. So that kind of exercise was necessary, and our support through Samrid went to that area. And the idea was also that it should not end at a pilot or at the validation. By the end of it, there should be a pricing methodology for the entire thing. Because one thing was also that how to price this kind of a solution. It requires a lot of capex, it requires operational cost. So when the system is ready, how should one price it to the government? Because ultimately government has to take it up and pay for these services. So to your question, in terms of the price tag, initially it was very, very difficult that what kind of a price tag can be put on this. So we basically worked out that what kind of funding would be required to validate this model over a year's time so that you have enough evidence in place to take things forward. And that was the decision point from our point. But what we also ensured was that while this pilot is going on, as an organization, Red Wings also needs to raise more funding to be sustainable, to expand their networks. Because the capex involved is quite high. Governments will be always ready to pay for the OPEX, but capex in initial investment needs to be done. So we also kind of worked with Red Wings and helped in kind of raising other forms of capital so that from whatever funding that we provided, there was a 5x leverage achieved for funding coming from other end. Now, post the pilot, the question has been that, okay, how to price it and all, is it successful or not? But just to give you a few examples in numbers, uh, the benefits of a drone network, besides reaching to the last mile in a time-efficient manner, in a climate-friendly manner, there's a huge cost benefit as well that the government gets. If you were to run a road network of delivery in similar geographies like Arunachal or in other states, versus a drone-based delivery at the operational expenses level, it's cheaper by almost as 40 to 50%. And with scale, the operational efficiencies will further improve. So besides the time benefit and the climate benefit, there is also a cost benefit here, which is something which is going to take the program not just in Arunachal but in other states as well. And the case has been built for that.
Also adding on, it's over and above just the cost. There is also the infrastructural benefits, right? Because it's like hosting the Olympics in some place where you also improve the infra of the overall place. Land in many places was leveled, and if you look at the holistic health system, I think there were decisions being made based on drone routes, right? So if you can come in on that, the value chain of this segment is quite big, right? How do you see, till when does impact funding flow?
So the value chain is huge in this kind of a program. So the kind of infrastructure that gets created. So what we found was that with the drone network coming in place, there were certain PHCs which became operational for the first time in the last decades. So there were PHCs in remote parts of Arunachal which had the human resources, but because they didn't have any supplies coming in for months and months, they used to be shut. So it was for the first time those became operational because there was a certainty that the supplies would come. There was also a lot of cases came where earlier the patients would have to travel hundreds of miles to get any kind of service because a simple thing as a small consumable will not be available at the PHC near to them. So with this network, with the certainty that those consumables could be made available at short notice, that also became a reality. And one of the kind of things which I think none of us perceived in the beginning was the great aspirational value attached to the drone program. Suddenly we saw that the youth in the region were kind of encouraged and we saw a lot of girls joining as drone pilots. In fact, the first woman drone pilot came from the program, which was a big achievement in its own, that in a rural area where education and skilling are kind of very, very difficult, this kind of a program can bring an aspirational job to the foray as well. Now, of course, the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has also kind of mentioned to have 10,000 plus women drone pilots in the country. But it always feels good to see that a small initiative in Arunachal kind of laid the framework for that kind of large initiative coming into foray. So overall infrastructure, aspirational value, and all those have been kind of side effects of the program as well.
Great. I think pretty key response. I mean, I'll just invite Kundan once again because there is also the skill development angle here, right? As Himanshu mentioned, there were women drone pilots. You even recruited locals. So one is you upskilled a lot of locals, and two is if you had to make this initiative stand on its own feet, post CSR funding, what would it look like, and what is that journey?
So just in terms of people who are, let's say, running that project, so when we had started out with these programs, both in Arunachal Pradesh and also in the state of Orissa, where Indian Oil Corporation was a partner, we had to rely on bringing a lot of outside, meaning people from outside the state to run those programs because there weren't a lot of skilled engineers or pilots in those locations. But over the phase of both the pilots, we were able to successfully train local youth. When I say local youth, I'm not even talking about like engineering youth. I'm talking about people who have just cleared 10th class, 12th class, ITI, Polytechnic diploma, right? We were able to take them, give them sufficient, and take the meaning we were like quite meritocratic in that process, right? We had to conduct a standard aptitude entrance test, run whole rounds of interview, and then select them. And then post that, give them some theoretical training in drones, give them practical on the field training. Even the brightest of those students, we also took them to our main R&D and technical center in Bangalore. And again, from that, the best of them, we actually got them certified as Government of India drone pilots. So you can imagine like people or families or those villages where getting a formal job itself is a distant dream. We were able to take the local tribal youth, not just give them any kind of job, but a kind of a technology job that people only envy in the cities itself, right? And so and today, after running both these programs for a while, right, today we can proudly share that almost 90% of the local staff are, 90% of the staff are local people, which we could never imagine that would have even been possible. But with those efforts and support with our partners, we've been able to localize the entire operations of those programs, right? And so the whole concept of technology job creation itself became a major benefit of a program in a district, right? Of course, health is the primary beneficiary of that program, but skilling and job creation also became like very important pillars of programs like those.
Thanks. So I'll bring in Abhishek. So I think with the Arunachal initiative at the back of it, I believe Indian Oil is now working closely in the Orissa program. So if you can, give an overview about how Indian Oil is perceiving CSR, what is in it for the organization at large.
Good evening to all of you, and thank you. Indian Oil has been doing CSR since long, even before it was mandated by CSR law or Companies Act 2013. And yeah, we have been doing CSR since long, but today's CSR is much different than what initially CSR was. When CSR was started, I will say every company was doing CSR in a way like seeing the immediate or fulfilling the immediate need of the people. But today's CSR currently, as of Indian Oil, I would say, we think of impact, we think of sustainability, we think of exit plan. Like, for example, if we talk about a drone healthcare project, I and Kundan had several meetings, and our first thing was like, okay, drone is a very, seems to be a very fancy thing, and it may attract new people or engineers or who believe in technology. But what about its implementation on ground? And suppose we are funding it, what will happen after? Will ultimately in CSR you have to take exit from any project. So what will happen after the project? And the important part of this project, of course, Red Wings is very much important for the success of project. But I would say even more important than Red Wing Labs is district health department. Because ultimately you have to integrate this program with healthcare network. Otherwise, you can fly drones on technical basis, but it will not serve the purpose. So stakeholder engagement is very important from the beginning. So when we were discussing this program, I saw that, yeah, there is involvement of the most important stakeholder. DM was involved and district health department was involved. Further, we also discussed about what would be the exit strategy. And when we discussed, it was found that, yeah, once we support and the project proves to be successful on ground, ultimately government is going to take it. And that's how we think of CSR. Currently, we are having many projects in, you can say, technology field or where new technologies are involved. We always try to take up projects in new technologies, try to implement on ground and build some successful scalable model so that either government or other corporates can also scale them. That's from my side.
So, added question. So, what does the end game in Orissa look like?
For Odisha,
Sorry, not the state, but your initiative with Red Wing.
if we talk about Odisha, though we have taken exit from the project, but though I keep on calling Kundan, so what's the next? Is government taking over the project or not? So our ultimately you cannot fund CSR, fund any project through CSR for lifelong. Ultimately you have to take exit. So our idea is only to take government in confidence that they make this drone network integral part of healthcare system. And I believe actually when the project has performed on the ground, so I believe that government will definitely consider it sometime administration people changes or government changes. Sometimes time may take, but we'll be able to, I think, make it integral part of Odisha healthcare system.
So actually, I'll bring it back to you, Himanshu, and maybe Kundan right after that. So from what we, even if you, I think, visit the expo here, there are a lot of, technology companies that are doing some really good work, but there is this over-dependence on government to be the market maker, to government to be the consumer. And that's across the board, right? I won't say it's dependence, but it's a more of a phenomenon. So is that a roadblock, or how should, say, a company like Red Wing, or for that matter any of the expo companies, navigate that?
See, in a country like India, and we'll just stick to healthcare, is primarily healthcare has been delivered by the government, and specifically when it comes to tier 2, tier 3 towns, rural areas, the dominance of government has been the highest. If you look at the large metros and all, The private sector has been a big player. You have the big chains of hospitals and all. However, over the last 5 years or so, things have started changing, and more so after COVID, when we are seeing larger penetration of the private sector to tier 2, tier 3 towns and rural areas as well. Now that provides a lot of opportunity to technology players like Red Wings and a lot of other medtech entrepreneurs that we work with to take their products to these markets through the private sector and not just necessarily be dependent upon the government. Government will of course remain one of the key clients, but in today's time, there is huge private sector penetration that's going on in these. A lot of hospital chains are coming up, which is focused on tier 2, tier 3 towns. A lot of primary healthcare chains are coming in rural areas. A lot of point of care device manufacturers are focusing on tier 2, tier 3 place, and all of these also require medical supplies. A lot of lab networks, for example, are opening in tier 2, tier 3 towns. Through our support itself, one of the chains, Modern Diagnostics, who are predominantly working in Gurgaon, opened labs in 5 tier 2 towns. Now, their focus is not just to look at the tier 2 market, but how they can capture the rural areas and the neighborhoods, the other tier 3 towns in their vicinity. Now, for them also, drone networks for getting the samples back becomes a key thing. Even the large pharma supply chain companies that we hear of, the likes of Tata 1mg, Flipkart Medicine, Apollo, etc., are increasingly penetrating to tier 2, tier 3 towns and rural areas, and they will also need, for just-in-supply principles, services of drones to be fast-tracking their delivery system. So that kind of opens up a new market for a player like Red Wings and other drone companies to not just look at governments, but also parallelly look at the private healthcare providers to kind of work with whether it's chains of hospitals or whether it's pharma chains, even government is now thinking of empaneling the likes of the big pharma chains for their programs, whether it's CGHS or all or other such schemes. So that I think is something that will help in the growth of the sector in coming years.
Yeah, Kundan, I'll just quickly recap what we discussed. The concept of the whole initiative, government acting as a first mover or a market maker to consume these technologies, CSR money coming in, conducting these pilot programs, you demonstrate a case for success, and then comes the point at which you have to stand on your own, at least the initiative stands on its own feet. So here either government comes in again to consume, or the private sector, like Himanshu mentioned, sort of learns the lessons from a program that you have done. So where do you stand, and where do sort of companies, startups like you stand on this? How do you keep your investor sentiment alive? And what do you see as next steps based on this?
While the first programs in India started from rural areas, right? Both the Arunachal project, the Odisha project, and some of the other smaller pilots happening elsewhere have started from rural areas. And so there is that dichotomy, right? If you want to do private sector projects, you have to start in cities because that's where the density of private sector healthcare is the highest. But of late, what we've been seeing is that 3 years since the time the industry has unlocked, a lot of interest is also coming from private sector healthcare to use drones. And what will also help in that is the opening up of regulations or permissions in, let's say, red and yellow zones. So quickly on the permission side, many people I'm sure have this doubt in mind. Can you fly a drone anywhere, or do you need permission? So the great thing that happened for the drone industry is that the government of India deregulated drone deliveries in the year late 2021. And so it has split the entire country into red zones, green zones, and yellow zones. So if it's a green zone, you don't need special permissions to fly. And that's where a lot of the projects have happened in rural areas, because almost 80% of rural India is in the green zone. But if you have to fly drones in urban India, where private sector healthcare has a lot more density, you will need special permissions. And the good thing is that because a lot of good programs have happened over the last 3 years, the confidence within the government is also increasing to allow drone deliveries in towns, semi-urbans, and coming to metro cities as well. So I think going forward, to keep the interest of investors alive, particularly because that was a pointed question, right? So I think it has to be a good mix of urban and rural healthcare drone deliveries. And we see benefits in both the sectors, right? In rural India, one of the biggest benefits is how do you take healthcare closer to people? And the people don't live 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers away, right? In fact, in Kandhamal district, which was like a much, much larger district than what we did in Arunachal, if you have, some of the villages are at the periphery of the district, right? So you have to travel 150, 200 kilometers to reach a village. Imagine a person traveling all the way to the district hospital, right? He spends a whole day traveling one side, one day taking treatment, and one day going back, right? It takes, many people think that OP is probably not very high, but imagine a person spending 3 days just to get treatment by traveling to the district hospital, right? You're foregoing wages for 3 days, right? You are spending a couple of hundred to couple of thousand rupees for your travel, food, stay, and we'll think how big of a deal is 1,000 rupees, right? But for a family that is earning 5,000 rupees a month, 1,000 rupees is a big deal. And so not many people even want to make that journey, right? Because it's difficult and expensive to make that journey. So that is a great value prop in the rural side, right? Taking healthcare really close to where people live, cutting their travel, reducing their OP by 20%, and then them getting the benefit of different kinds of health programs. But in urban India, the challenge is very different, right? For us, congestion is very real. Fortunately, this event is happening so close to the airport, right? In 15 minutes, we can reach the airport. But imagine the event is happening somewhere in Noida or some remote part of Gurgaon. It will take hours to reach the airport, right? Even cities like Bangalore, where we are based, it takes hours and hours just to cross the city. So congestion, climate change, and climate change is also very important for urban healthcare because imagine if it rains, your roads are clogged, nor can your vehicles go, nor can your ambulances go, right? And these are real problems in urban India. So the value of drones in urban India is coming more from a congestion standpoint, a climate change standpoint, right? So those problems are very different from rural India. But we see there's a good adoption that is going to come even on the urban healthcare space.
Do you want to add to that?
Just add a use case to what Kundan was mentioning. What we are also seeing a lot of interest coming in from governments is for the trauma care management space, and especially in cities, how drones can play a big role when it comes to taking blood or life-saving drugs from one center to the other. Because if you just purely kind of depend upon the road network, the time it may take to transport something is very high. So we are working in the NCR region to set up, it's at an early stage right now, to conceptualize a drone network specifically focusing on trauma care, life-saving drugs, and transport of blood when the shortage is there. So its market is evolving, and I think as we move forward, both public and private sector are becoming big clients.
So final question before we move to the audience here. I mean, it's to all of you, in fact. So if I have to line it up with the SDGs, right? So by ensuring there is limited out-of-pocket expenses, if you run a program like this for, say, 3 to 5 years, the disposable income of that district will definitely be higher than what it is when you started. Point number one. Point number two is you have skilled people. There is upskilling. You're creating jobs. You're providing healthcare access to the last mile. Anything else I've missed out?
The point that I touched briefly, the environmental benefit. So the kind of carbon saved by using drones versus road networks, which unfortunately in India are for transportation, are purely dependent upon diesel, which is a high pollutant. Plus, it also increases the cost for cost as well as environmental impact for maintaining multiple points for cold chain for specific drugs. So all that with a drone network with just-in-time supply concept coming in, you can save a lot of carbon output on transportation, on cold chain, and that has a huge environmental impact as well, specifically in fragile environments like Arunachal or parts of Odisha where Red Wings has worked.
Great. Any final comments from any of you? Then we'll move to the audience.
We can go.
Yep. So how many of you have worked with drones? Just asking.
Vignesh, if I can request you,
Sure.
before we move to the Q&A, if you can put up a short video just for the audience to get a perspective of how these deliveries happen. It's a quick 3-minute video. I'll request my colleague Rohit to kindly play the video.
Sure.
At Red Wing, we're a lot of things, but first and foremost, we're a technology company. and we're improving the access to healthcare and the quality of healthcare in remote and rural areas using a drone delivery service.
ए जगार कम्युनिकेशन ना कम्युनिकेशन कहले टेलीकम्युनिकेशन इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन और रोड अच्छी.
We cannot provide better laboratory facilities what we are giving here in DHH.
And that is the drone program. They have been testing students in the schools in Kandhamal district. That since it is the remote place and the patients cannot come in to this place, so the drone program has provided them a good opportunity that all the samples are being collected, tested before, so that they get the medicine regularly.
जब मैं कंधमाल ड्रोन प्रोग्राम पर ज्वाइन किया था तब हमारे गांव के सब लोग मुझे बधाई दिए और मुझे बहुत प्राउड फील हुआ उस पर.
Within the healthcare space, drones can play that active role, and it's not just hilly areas or difficult to reach regions where drones have shown results, but even geographies like Kandhamal, we have seen good results in terms of how drones can make the healthcare infrastructure much more efficient.
Think about those hinterlands where neither the drug is available nearby nor the doctor is available nearby, but a patient is a patient is a patient. That is the reason why we thought this is one of the best ways to use technology.
मुझे बताया गया है कि मेडिसिन फ्रॉम द स्काई कार्यक्रम के अंतर्गत दूर दराज के गांव में दवाइयां और वैक्सीन ड्रोन के माध्यम से कम समय में पहुंचाने की पहल राज्य के कुछ क्षेत्रों में की गई है. ये प्रयास टेक्नोलॉजी फॉर सोशल इम्पैक्ट का अच्छा उदाहरण है.
Another recent update, this initiative was recognized by a special agency of the United Nations last month as an inspirational program from India. So yeah, we'll just move to the audience once again. Any questions from anyone? If you can introduce yourself and then.
Hello sir, hello. My name is Piyush and I'm a third year BTech student. So my question is, a few years ago, Amazon attempted to introduce drone delivery service in India. Faced various challenges in inadequate infrastructure, safety concerns, and security issues lead to failed. So, what are your new plans for using drones in healthcare, and how do you plan to address these challenges moving forward?
It's a clarification. The
So, a few years ago, Amazon attempted.
No. I got your question. Just to inform you that the initiative did not fail. It actually went ahead. I mean, see, just to give you an overview is that any near miss in aviation is considered as an incident. And even manned aviation for that matter is not 100% foolproof. It has not been. It's just that these initiatives did take off in a very big way. There were some incidents, but they've actually been documented, and it actually continues to happen. There was a survey that they conducted in the US, where one, of course, the novelty factor as to how many people wanted their deliveries using drones, and I think 79% of them answered yes. So it is actually quite active. Maybe not in the scale that we have envisioned, but it's not a failure by any means. So let me put it.
I'm sorry for the failure.
No problem. Just keeping you posted.
Thank you.
But yeah, to your point, I think the greater point that you're making, regulations are extremely important. It is a very regulated sector, and aviation, healthcare, both are equally regulated. This is pretty much the meeting point of both.
Thank you.
My question here is why it was manned drone, why it was not like unmanned drone wherein you just give the coordinates and it will make a delivery. That's the first question. And the other one was, I think, the disaster relief is where drone will play a key role, I guess, wherein it is in the case of floods or earthquakes where it is highly inaccessible to go. I think that point nobody mentioned. So I think that's an important point. And when do you think it will be commercially viable to use drones for common people to do a deliveries for healthcare and stuff? We are seeing in Israel they are using drones for fighting against the rockets, but still we are at initial phases. But when that stage will come, according to you?
So the drones that are being used in the healthcare delivery space, right, as we call it in our parlance, they are beyond visual line of sight, BV laws, autonomous drones. So these drones are completely autonomous. There are pilots, but the pilots don't fly these drones. The pilots are just there for monitoring. So the drones are completely autonomous, wherein exactly to what you said, sir, the coordinates are keyed in, and the drone travels from point A to B, comes back carrying, let's say, takes some products and gets back some samples. So the pilots are only there to monitor, and so there is no person holding a remote and flying this drone, because these drones don't travel 500,000 meters like most of the drones that we see, like the photography drones that are used in events, or even the agriculture drones that are used for spraying pesticide and, let's say, fertilizer. So these travel 50, 100, 200 kilometers, come back on their own. They're completely autonomous. So that depends on the drone again, right? You can have drones that can travel just 5 kilometers, and you can have drones that travel 100, 150 kilometers as well. Right? It's a function of what are you building that drone for, right? Are you building it for range or for carrying more payload, right? And that is how, based on the use case, is how the drones get built, right? So you can have all types of drones, basically.
Sir, I had a question.
Just to complete the answer, the second question that you had on disaster relief, definitely that's a very big use case, specifically in times of floods, in times of any other natural calamity. Drones can play a very important role in ensuring emergency supplies. The challenge right now is that for unmanned drones specifically, you need a network layout to be there from the kind of as a base. And that's where the market is right now, kind of building that thing, that how we can have a nationwide network where at least there is a common understanding of what the terrain is, what the blockages on the way are, so that the unmanned drones can fly better. Related to the same issue is when can we have more drones flying across our cities? So again, the same challenge comes into way, and there are initiatives that are going on right now to facilitate that. What's already happening, which is not that much visible with large kind of chains, is that warehouse to warehouse supplies have started using drones. So it's more B2B connections right now. B2C is something which are being piloted in different cities, but there are challenges to that. So most of the drone companies are trying to address them right now. So in the next few years, I would say that B2C deliveries, whether it's your 10-minute deliveries that we are having right now through gig workers, or your C2C deliveries that you see from one customer to the other, like from one individual to the other using a platform, they will also start happening through drones.
To your final point on economic viability, right? So I think higher the value of what you carry, then more viable or more economically valuable is your sortie. That's the general principle here. So one question that I think many of us get asked day in and day out is, if I can reach the place by a scooter, why do I really need a drone, right? So I think what we've established today from today's discussion, and even in general, is that one, it is a very time-tested solution. If you do it for a certain period of time, then the value is definitely there. And there are a lot of intangibles. So if you look at, for example, transport of an organ, so they transported a kidney in the US. Now, if I have to establish a green corridor, which is also a very successful way of doing it, and through the ambulance, there is also a lot of pressure on the traffic, police, the people miss maybe $1 million meetings for that. How do you measure the intangible things? So putting a tag on that is key. I mean, there is a deeper level of study that is needed to ascertain that, but it is a very financially viable proposition with provided it is time tested. Sorry?
I think when it comes to government regulations, I mean, there is things to be thought of. I mean, I was working with maps. I mean, there is a central body called Survey of India, and getting any map was a big headache. There are so many formalities that you have to put in, but those maps are available in Google Map free of cost to a meter or that kind of accuracy. So the government regulations will play a key role. I mean, wherever there is a need, I mean, they have to soften it, and it should be for a common use, not to put a restriction, but to make a use of it. Yeah.
Yep. It's a detailed discussion, but we'll move to the next question.
So hi. So I am Haley. I am basically a social work professional. Hello. Yeah. So my name is Haley. I am from Apex on Ignite team, and basically I am a social work professional and working in the CSR and ESG space. So this is a great concept, and I'm sure the execution is also very nice because it has been, suggested by a lot of the global bodies to inculcate, and I'm sure that this is.
Do you have a question? Sorry.
I have a question. In terms of what are the resource systems capacity building that we need to do if we want to, use the drones. So for example, do we generate the capacity of any community health workers? Because if we want to reach to the last mile through drone, so what are the social sector initiatives that we can take as a social work fraternity? That is my question.
In fact, a very good observation. So when we had started working in the space, right, we thought if we put a drone, magic will happen. But then we realized that just putting a drone is not going to bring any magic into the whole solution, right? And then we realized a lot of capacity building and strengthening and integration is very important, right? In fact, Abhishek mentioned how well do you integrate with the district health department and the community is a crucial part that makes a program successful. And the good thing is that when we work with very good funders like USAID, for example, Indian Oil CSR, right? Those other parts of the program that are not technology are also evaluated and discussed very thoroughly, right? Because unless those are addressed, the program is not going to be successful. So there was a lot of capacity building that had to happen. People, the local healthcare staff had to be trained on how to use a drone service. Let's say, how do you collect blood? How do you pack diagnostic samples? If you need a medicine quickly, how do you order? Do you do it via the app, WhatsApp, or phone? Let's say, how do doctors start using that service? How do you integrate drones with every program, right? Because one thing, those of you who have worked in health, you'll realize that health department is not one department. Each program is a department in itself, right? A malaria program is different from a TB program, different from a sickle cell program. I can keep going on, the list is very long. So how do you get drones integrated with each and every department, right? That is where the difficult part of the work is, right? Seeing the drone fly is, we felt, because we're a tech company, flying the drone was the easiest part for us. Like trust me. The difficult part was how do you bring all programs on board, how do you bring ASHA workers on board, ANMs on board, doctors on board, administrators on board, which is where the leadership of the district or the state plays a very important role, right? If your district collector and district magistrate champions the program well, then we have seen, in fact, both programs, right, be it Arunachal and Odisha, right, the DMs and the administration became a very pivotal factor in the successful execution of the program. And of course, the point that I mentioned, great funders make sure that we as implementers bring in those aspects into the program, right, and that is what has helped in terms of capacity building.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen, for the great insights. I'll hand it back to you.
Vignesh, if you want to show the reports, yeah.
Do you want? Feel free to announce it.
Yeah. So basically, for those of you who are interested in reading more about the work that we have done, how have drones helped? Like not from a tech side, right? Because we all know that the drones fly, right? 3 years back, people even used to wonder, can a drone even fly and carry something? But today, that's not science fiction anymore, right? It's happening day in and day out. But what World Economic Forum and we have done is that we have published different reports, more like white papers on the impact of drones in this space, right? We, from our experience of both programs in Arunachal and Odisha, and World Economic Forum from the experience of their programs in Telangana and Arunachal. These resources are exceptionally good, and for those of you who are interested, you can go through it, and I'll request that the QRs be put up. You can download the reports, and there's a lot of resources in this.
Yeah, meanwhile that happens, we have Mr. Anshul Sharma with us, sorry. So he's the founder and CEO of Red Wing, so requesting him to please come up on the stage and say a few lines. Give him a big round of applause, guys.
Unfortunately, Anshul was using the traditional flying method today and got delayed and couldn't join us earlier.
Yeah, I missed basically 2 flights, and both of them got delayed. So didn't have a good luck flying today. But I wouldn't take too much time. But I would just like to tell a story over the past 3 years on how we've gotten these gentlemen basically on the stage, right? Drones in healthcare was something which India didn't pioneer, right? It got pioneered in a country called Rwanda, which was in Africa, in 2016. Rwanda expanded its healthcare program from 2016 all the way up till now as well. And starting first with Vignesh over here, right, from World Economic Forum. So World Economic Forum played a very pivotal role into igniting and building that program in Rwanda, right? And when they were thankfully looking at the India chapter, and Vignesh was conceptualizing the drones in healthcare for India, Telangana turned out to be a really great state essentially to first adopt it, and that's how journey got started. But it took us almost 18 months to convince the regulators basically for us to fly the first medicine by using delivery drone. So that's been a journey that we've been on with World Economic Forum, and we're very grateful that they're still continuing to expand the program on. The second piece is that again, fun fact in Africa is that Rwanda, Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Kenya, and multiple other countries are using drones on an everyday basis at a nationalized level. More than 80% of the blood supply basically is flown by drone on an everyday basis. So it has completely replaced the traditional modes of transportation, right? And to start that sort of catalyst piece, there were always catalyst funders which were initially involved. And in India, thankfully we're very grateful to find Samrid's and IP's and USAID's facility, right, for catalyzing the first drone delivery networks in India. Arunachal happened because all of these partners basically came together with World Economic Forum, the government of Arunachal, IP Global, USAID, under the Samrit program. Everyone came together to basically make that first program happen. So it truly takes the entire village to basically raise a child, right? And last but not least, Indian Oil, we were starting to talk to more and more CSR funders. We didn't expect essentially a large organization, a large PSC organization like Indian Oil to basically be one of the first CSRs essentially to adopt these sort of program. So we're very grateful basically for the support that Indian Oil has also extended to the entire program, and really leaned into the part that we maybe have 50-60% data, but we will get there as the program rolls out, right? So yeah, I think it's been a great journey, and as a result of which, when we started, I would say over the past 24 months, more than 18 plus states have rolled out some form of expression of interest to basically start adopting drone delivery into states. So if you go to Arunachal today, you'll see drones flying. If you go to Chhattisgarh today, you'll see drones flying. If you go to Odisha today, you'll see drones flying. So, Hopefully over the next 3-4 years, more and more places as you're traveling through rural India, you'll see more and more drones fly. But it's a reminder basically that the story basically was started because of these very important key actors. So thank you everyone, to all the partners to support and catalyze this sector into India. Thank you.